Project 571, genetically engineered vampire created to destroy evil.
What do you want?
We need your help to kill a vampire.
Malleus Maleficario. It was written by a witch. The first witch. Titania.
That was a little snippet from The Witch's Hammer, the first film I ever solo directed, and it's just been remastered and re-released on Amazon. So if you like witches and vampires, then please do check it out. Anyway, let's get on with this week's episode. Hi, Jim here, and you're listening to the Honest Filmmaker podcast. This week I'm chatting to filmmaker Tobias Jon. Hi Tobias, how you doing?
Hi Jim, thanks for having me. Really good, thanks.
You're most welcome, you're most welcome. So primarily we're going to chat about your debut feature, Gifted Pain. So people know what that is, set that up for me. Give me the sort of basic synopsis for it.
So Gifted Pain is basically a story of sort of redemption and childhood tragedy about a child or an adult called Christopher who seeks refuge in martial arts films, and over his life that's all he watches. So he has a bit of a bad childhood and a bit of domestic abuse in his childhood, and loses his family at an early age. And to cope with it, as a coping mechanism, he uses martial art films to deal with that. And that's all he watches through his entire life up until his sort of early 30s. And then he goes back home to find out what happened to his life and his family. And through certain stressful situations and under highly stressful circumstances, he finds these abilities that were dormant inside him in his subconscious that come to his conscious mind, and finds that he can do things that necessarily he didn't know he could do. And we explore the power of the subconscious mind within the film, basically showing you that people absorb so much information on their day-to-day routines and things like that they may not be aware of. And these are documented cases. You can look through and find genuine cases of where people under stressful circumstances and certain accidents where some people have been in a coma and come back round and found that they are can speak a different language, or a maths genius or something like that. And Christopher, our character, finds that all of this martial arts kung fu films that he's absorbed, he can sort of do a few things that he didn't realize he could do, and he uses it for good. Basically, it takes the stereotypical action film trajectory. However, we've kind of flipped it a little bit and made it a bit more emotional, in the sense that majority of action films, the storyline is just a little bit of filler until you're into the next bit of action, constant action all the way through. And for good or bad, we did the opposite and wanted to make the action take you to the next bit of story. So that's what we've done with the film.
And I'd also say there's something of maybe it's a male-female fantasy of being in a difficult situation and suddenly realizing you know martial arts out of nowhere and being able to defend yourself. There is that fantasy. I'm sure I've got it when I'm walking down a dark street. It's fine. My martial arts training will kick in. So looking at the behind the scenes side, because obviously you wrote, directed, and you're starring in it as well. How did it come about in the first place, the film?
So originally I wasn't supposed to be the main character in the film, but I'll get to that in a minute. But originally I've had parts in other films, and different filmmakers, we would have different conversations, and they would ask me if I had any ideas about making films or any storyline that I thought would be able to be adapted into a short film or a feature. And I first of all came up with an idea for a short film, and we adapted that and made that into something. And then from that point on, I was, through conversations with, surely you must have an idea for a feature film. And I'd never written anything to the level of a feature film at all. I've been a huge film fan since watched my first film at the cinema, and I've always wanted to be a part of it. I started off being an extra on Doctor Who and Casualty and things like that, and I've always loved film. So it was a big challenge to actually sit down and write a script. It's something that was completely alien to me. I didn't go to any filmmaking school or anything like that at all. So a lot of research went into it to see how a structure of a script works. And I did a lot of, I took a Martin Scorsese masterclass, an online thing where he coaches you through it and tells you about building scenes and structure and chapters and things like that. And I wrote this script and pitched it to the friends of mine that are filmmakers that had already released films, which they said, "Oh, we think you're onto something here." And it went through 6 different variations of draft. And after the 6th one, we felt that we had something that we could work with. And we got onto the point of casting people. And I, like I said, wasn't supposed to be the main character in the film. I love creating things. And I think being behind the camera, you yourself will know this, that if you've created something and written something down, the joy of seeing that being acted out in front of you is hard to describe. That feeling when you're seeing an actor say the words that you've written down, and the thing that was in your imagination is physically manifested in front of you. That's an amazing thing. And that's what I really wanted to do, because I could have more control over the film, more the vision of what I had would be seen easier. However, because we knew that it was going to take so long to make the film, because we were solely doing this on people's free time, on a lot of people helping out through expenses only and things, we knew we were constrained to sort of weekends only, really. So I knew it would take long. There were 3 other actors that were scheduled to be lined up to be the main character of Christopher. One couldn't do it because they couldn't commit to the time period involved. The other one was asking for too much, as in monetary side of it, which we couldn't commit to. And also the other person was just didn't fit really with how we wanted to work. And so it was under the advice of Rhys Hayward, who's an executive producer, and he said, "Well, why don't you do it?" And I was really apprehensive. I know it may not seem that way, because I suppose it's everyone's dream to write, direct, and be in a film. And I was apprehensive because it is so much to take on, and it is like write the theme tune, sing the theme tune sort of thing, and
beat the people up.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So, but it was only through guidance of other people that said, "No, we think you should do it." And I've had martial arts training, and I have a slight fight background, so it kind of made sense. And in all honesty, the length of time that it took to make the film, I don't think anybody else would have been able to commit to it. No one would have been able to stay on board with the project for as long as it did, especially with how long it took to do it. And as Rhys had said, he said, "You know what you want. You know the vision of the film of how you want it to end up. So really, in his words, there is no better choice." And so that's where we ended up, really.
Yeah, that work shooting a feature film on weekends is tough, because it's almost, I've done it myself in the past, but if you're not careful, you end up in this state of constantly starting and stopping and having to wind up to get yourself going. Whereas if you're doing like a longer shoot, you've sort of get your pace and you can kind of get into the rhythm. So I don't envy you there doing the weekends. And yeah, it makes total sense you being in it, because then you're not having to figure out, oh, is my lead free 3 weekends from now because I've got this location. How did you fund the film? Was it self-funded? Did you pay for it? Did you do crowdfunding?
It was. Originally, that wasn't the case. So we had funders on board to fund the film prior to COVID happening. and they were very much on board with it. And I think if that had happened, I think the way the film would have been created and shot, if we had that backing behind us, it would have been a different type of film, I think, in some ways. But unfortunately, when COVID happened, a lot of people because everything shut down, all filmmaking stopped. Even when it started to come out of COVID, people were still restricted with how you could do things. And nobody wanted to take a risk on a feature film, especially an unknown, no budget sort of action film from someone who's never made a film before. So everybody pulled out. But I'd written this and everything was getting momentum. All of the cast were ready to go. The crew were ready to go. So, and I'd spent so long writing it, and everyone sort of believed in the script that I had to do it. So yeah, I self-funded it in the end, just through pure passion. And I'm a firm believer that if you have a dream or want to do something, that you should follow it, because life is so short that it makes much more sense to do the things that you love than to think further down the line, oh, what if I had tried that? What if I had done that? I would have much rather be in a situation to say we did it and it didn't go anywhere, it didn't work, rather than thinking, oh, I wish I'd have done that.
Yeah, definitely. And it's also, you can end up, unfortunately, with some projects, you could just end up waiting forever for the money and it never comes. So you've got to just make a decision at some point, right? This is getting made. It's not going to have the same sort of budget, but like you say, you're never going to have enough money. Even, I'm sure James Cameron moans about not having enough money. So you just have to make do. Can you give me, I'm not expecting an exact figure, can you give me a budget range for it?
I'm not very good with money.
Me neither.
My family and friends will testify to that. I'm terrible with money. I think it's between 30 to 50. I think something around about that sort of figure, roughly about that. It says 30 on IMDb, but I think a safe bet would sit around that. And I mean, to make a feature film on that, and some of the scenes that we've got in the film, I think make it look like a bigger budget, because we were very lucky with a lot of the locations that we got to use. And sometimes that can eat your budget up because people just want so much money to be able to use their place. And yeah, so yeah, that was roughly about what it was. And the problem being is that I didn't have that money just sat there to be like, oh, I'm just going to make this film. So money would come in and things would get paid for, and then a bit of money would come in and things would get paid for. And I was like, right, we've got this, so I know I can shoot that block of scenes and things like that. So yeah, it was a struggle. And equally as well, other people, so some friends and family had said, well, if I help you and I invest in this, what do I get back? And I said, well, I don't know, because you don't know. I don't think, unless you're a big production company where you've got something behind you, like MGM or something like that, for example, there's no way of you as an indie filmmaker being able to say, well, if you put X amount of money in, I know through whatever sales that are predicted, I can return this to you. So there's no way on earth that anyone could put money into it and me be able to say, well, yes, I know you're going to get that back plus this. So it was only something that I could fund myself. Yeah.
And it's often the case that those productions you're talking about would use tax schemes to make sure their investors got something out of it. Like you say, you could never promise. And if you are dealing with investors, you've got to make it very clear that this is a bit of a, you're shooting for the moon. Obviously, you're hoping for a massive success. It could make no money. It could make a load of money. It's a really difficult one to predict with a feature film. So looking back on shooting your first feature film, it's edited, it's out now on streaming, so people can watch it on Amazon at the moment. I'm assuming it will hit Tubi and other places like that as well at some point.
Yes, it will. Currently it's on YouTube Movies, which I think is called Prime TV or something like that. Prime Movies. No, not Prime Movies.
Google Movies or maybe Google
There's
TV.
It's on Google. Yeah, it's on Google Movies. It's on Amazon Prime, and it's now on DVD and Blu-ray as well. And I think YouTube has got. They don't call it YouTube Movies. They call it Prime Time or something like that.
Yeah.
But YouTube has got a movie section as well now. So there's multiple different avenues for it to get out there. Yeah.
And I'll come back to physical release because that's interesting that you've done that. So looking back on that, making your first feature film, debut feature, what do you wish you'd known when you started that process?
Oh wow, that's a great question. I think trying to wear too many hats, that is one of the biggest thing, and having and being a massive control freak in the sense of that you want to oversee everything. I think because even with the edit, apart from certain visual effects that people will not necessarily even notice in the film, the visual effects being removing logos in the background, changing a poster, that kind of thing, which is all subtle stuff. You know, there's no big green screen stuff or anything. But I think having other people, like a genuine sound designer, an editor, because I edited it all myself. I did predominantly a lot of the sound design myself as well. And I think giving people key job roles would be something that would take a lot more stress away from someone as a filmmaker. If I was solely the director, then that would have made the process so much easier, because you'd have conversations with your editor or whomever's doing the sound design or the production assistant, like all the organization for each shoot day of who had to be there, what costumes were needed, just the location itself, all of the props that were needed, everything else, everything was sourced by me completely.
I don't like the sound of that.
Yeah, it was very, very stressful.
I can imagine.
So I think having designated job roles would be the biggest thing that I would do differently in the next film that we're going to do. And I think that's the big takeaway, to not take so much on board yourself, because and to be in the film as well, the pressure of all of that is so much that and you're trying to direct people at the same time. It's easier. I much more enjoyed the scenes that I wasn't in, because I could oversee that, and it took less time because I'm physically looking at the monitor rather than shooting something with me and having to go round, play it back, look at it, be happy with it, etc., etc. So I think, yeah, the main thing would take away from me is to try to, if you have the ability and the budget, to stay in that lane of your one kind of job role within the film.
Yeah. I mean, I think there's two sides to that. I mean, I certainly would never advise anyone to take on continuity, props, location management, and all of that as well. But I think I would say on your first feature film, if you end up editing and doing the sound design, you will learn a lot that will inform conversations you have on your second feature, for sure. But it's such a time drain doing things like that. And also the other effect it has, I think, is other people in doing those roles will add more to the secret sauce. They'll kind of come up with things that you'd never would have thought of. So you're looking for help getting those jobs done, but also other creative inputs so that it becomes a bit more of a mix. So that is a tough one. It's a lot to take on.
I mean, Ben Loftus, the assistant director, so he came on board so I went through a few camera ops as we did, because just through availability and commitment and things like that. So we went through a couple of camera ops, but then Ben Loftus came on board really early on in the film, and we genuinely just clicked. And he got the idea of the film, he got the vision, he got the concept, and from that point on, it was a great partnership between him and I. So when we got through to the first edit of it, which the first edit was like 2 hours and 45 minutes. And I knew I was never going to put that out. But I have this old school look at film where, like Lawrence of Arabia, where you're watching just huge, great big long takes of just someone walking or something like that. And I like these drawn out things that kind of pull you in emotionally. And he's like, there's too much walking in this film. We need these cuts. And his influence with helping me chop it down further and further and further till we got something that didn't drag as it was going along. That really, really, really helped. So I get what you're saying when having other people in the pot helping you kind of design your film throughout. I still like the idea of maybe doing like a master cut myself and then maybe handing it over to an editor to trim it up and make it more intriguing.
Yeah, the only thing I think I wouldn't let go of is editing, because I feel like that's the film's made in the edit, and if it's your film, I don't know. I've had people do cuts before. What I would suggest, what's really useful, is if you have someone doing edits while you're shooting.
Yes.
So you can at least be, I've got that. That scene's in the bag. I don't need any cutaways. I don't need any of that stuff. But when it comes to actual editing, yeah, I've got to do that. I think what I've had a situation in the past is where I've done a big shoot, loads of crew, DOP, camera assistant, scaffer, the lot. And then the next shoot is me filming it. And suddenly I'm just sort of staring at a tripod in a bag thinking, God, I've got to bend over in a minute and pick that up and set it up. And I've got to do everything. So once you've been spoiled, it's so hard to go back. That's a tough one. So talking about doing all those jobs, what would you say was the hardest day on set on that movie?
There's quite a few days that were really hard. A couple that stick out to me are because there's some key, very emotional scenes in the film. For a lot of the characters, Sarah Jane Duncan, who plays Beth, she has this emotional journey throughout the entire film. She cries pretty much in all of her scenes, a lot of them. But the scenes where I had to be kind of like emotionally drawn, I had to still be able to oversee things, even though Ben had taken the role of assistant director and was overseeing things a lot. There was, I think, the kind of finale at the end of the film, without giving too much away, in a scene of confrontation at the end. That was really hard. It was a very long day in one location. There was a lot of emotion in the air, and there was so much that we had to shoot because we were shooting from different time frames. So a different time scenario, and then another time scenario, and then a final time scenario. So that was really hard. Although it was okay in the one location, that was fine. But it was just the added pressure of having to be in this emotional state and also try and direct and oversee things, which is almost impossible. The other couple of times where there's a big stunt in the film, I don't want to give it away, but there's a big stunt that I do myself, and it was extremely risky and very we didn't have a lot of takes with it, or I wasn't prepared to do a lot of takes with it because of what was involved with it, and that was scary. I don't want to say it was massively high pressured, stressful, but we only had these locations for a very finite amount of time, and that was hard. Other stuff is just because a lot of the film was shot in lanes and things like that around Bristol. That had its own sort of issues with the general public and stuff like that. There was one time when we were filming down in Devon we're doing a night shoot in a shop, and we were raided by the police.
Oh, nice.
Because the landlord of the shop didn't tell the residents who lived up above that we were filming down there, and all they could hear was a robbery happening over and over again. And yeah, we got busted by the police. So that was a bit intense, but it was kind of a funny story afterwards.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd say the emotional stuff was draining, but that leads back to, again, putting yourself in the role of actor and director at the same time. And it makes me, again, even more so think that it's either one or the other. To do both is just is so hard. I know there are a lot of actor directors that do that. I can think of Ricky Gervais, Ben Stiller. You know, they've
do probably got a
bigger
bigger crew, though, haven't they?
Oh yeah,
I'm sure they've got a lot more people sorting the props out on locations. They're not doing all of that stuff.
Yeah, so they haven't got all these things buzzing around in their head and thinking about all that stuff, and they've got budget and time on their hands.
Yeah.
So that is the pressure of everything took its toll.
Yeah. The other thing I noticed when I was watching it was you use, and I'm making an assumption here, so tell me if I'm wrong, but you've used some stock drone footage. No, is that all your drone footage?
Correct, yeah.
Oh, amazing. So that's impressive, because I looked at it and I was like, oh, he's probably chucked some stock in there because it's got sort of sunrisey stuff on it.
Yeah, it's all ours. Yeah.
So
it's all Bristol. Cool. It's all Bristol.
Well, it is all Bristol. Oh,
yeah,
well, there you go.
It's Bristol.
That fooled me.
Yeah.
So my point was going to be about using. You can use stock drone footage to add perceived budget to your film. You've done it with real footage. Well done.
Yeah.
The other one was that I was quite impressed with was the music, because the music didn't sound like it was off of a license-free site. So how did you handle that?
So a lot of the music is by Bristol musicians. So we used a lot of that, and there's a great musician called Marnes. We used a couple of her songs in the film. We paid to license a song in one of the fight scenes from Sigma, who's a big D&B sort of group. We really wanted that track for a fight scene. It really worked really well. And there's a couple of everything else has been created by two other composers, and I worked really hard with them to make sure that they understood the tone of what I wanted through the score, outside of the individual pieces of music that we put within specific scenes. So all of the music that's kind of standalone outside of the natural synthy 80s style score that I really wanted to go for, all of that are individual artists or the score from, I think there's two composers. One did the majority of it, and then there's one scene that he couldn't get right, so I got a different composer to come in and create something for that one fight scene as well.
Yeah, well, you can definitely tell, because I think the opposite of that is you can tell when someone's in a nightclub and they've used some license-free music that just doesn't quite sound like it would actually be playing in a nightclub. So it definitely helps, again, add that perceived budget to the film, make you feel like you're watching a proper film, he says.
Oh, there's one scene that we made our own song. So there's kind of like the final scene where our lead Christopher goes to finish off all the bad guys. That one was, we created that song. It's actually called Tobias Jon, the name of the song. I don't know what it was, just for ease of remembering the name of the song, and we put that in there. So that's a standout thing as well. So that sort of is in the nightclub scene where it's like heavy bass and that kind of thing, a real dancey track. So yeah, I think music, like you said, is really important in a film, and if it doesn't work, it becomes very jarring and it separates you completely from the scene and the environment and the world that you're put in with the film. I think if you can't get the music right, or the sound in general, if you're like, I don't know, say like you say in a nightclub, and the sound of even the people in the nightclub sounds off, it will just take you out of it instantly. So I think the sound is really, it's like, I don't know, 70% of your film probably.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Sound design, super important. And yeah, music. I've had a film where I've gone so far with a composer and then just had to just say it's just not working. I just can't. Your sound isn't kind of connecting. Your music's not connecting with this film, and had to pivot to another composer. Thankfully, when you do that, because it is a bit when you see some scenes with music on, you're like, something's wrong with this. You start to think, oh, is it me? Have I shot something that's bad, or does it not work? But sometimes it can just be getting that music right to make it all click together. So on Amazon, going on other platforms, you're with Indie Rights.
Yes.
Did you go straight for them? Did you try sales agents first? What was your strategy with sales and distribution?
So this was all complete new ground to me. I didn't really know. So I was researching things on people and asking other people. I had other friends that had made films and put them out there and had been taken advantage of, in their words, by other distributors. There's a film that I was in called Actually, I won't mention it. So there was a film that I was in and it did relatively well, and it was on Sky, that you could rent it on there. And I said to him, I said, oh, so did you make your money back? What did you get? It's on Sky. So I've got nothing. The distributors screwed him. So I was very, very cautious of what was going on. And then as soon as the film hit on IMDb and we put it on there, you start to get approached by distributors and they naturally just contact you. And I think you have to do your own due diligence of finding out who is legit and just doing lots of research and going onto forums, seeing other people's experiences of working with those. And there are a hell of a lot of shady distributors out there that will try and take advantage of people. And there were certain deals that were offered with regards to, oh, if you give us this money up front, then further down the line we'll see what you get. And I don't think any filmmaker should be paying a distributor to put their film out. And there were 3 other distributors that were involved prior to us agreeing to go with Indie Rights. And the thing I liked about the Indie Rights guys, yes, they've got a lot of films on their kind of roster, and more so from the States than the UK. And they don't favor one filmmaker or anything. They just, the onus is more so on you to market and put your film out there. They'll do a bit, and but it's not a case of that, right, we're going to run with your film for however many months and really push your film and put you behind it, because they're doing the groundwork for you and the legwork of getting it onto all of these platforms. Because I don't think as a filmmaker you'd be able to do that on your own. I think it would be very hard. Potentially you could get it onto Amazon. I think that would be relatively, I don't want to say easy, but straightforward. But I think having that process with them, and also the links with them to be able to put it onto DVD and Blu-ray as well, they were an obvious choice after discussions with others. The other side of it is that I think at least 2 of the distributors that got involved said, oh, we want you to change this, this, and this on the film before we decide to put it out. And I was like, well, I can't change that part and I can't change this part. And there has to be some sort of creative integrity around what you create as a filmmaker, to not have your film messed with by a distributor just because they want to chop it down to like 90 minutes because people's attention spans are so small. So I wasn't prepared to do that. And I just think Indie Rights was a good choice overall. But it was a minefield. It was a real minefield, because like I said, it's nothing I'd done before. And equally, it was quite daunting, because once you've agreed with whomever you agree with, that's it. You're tied in for however long. Yeah. And so it was risky, but I'm happy with who we went with. I think so.
Yeah, no, I think it's unfortunately, when you're dealing with sales and distribution, and you meet anybody, and you do, so, like you say, as soon as you put it on IMDb, and I've even had films have gone up that I've kind of worked on that have fell apart, never happened, that have gone on my IMDb, and I still get inquiries. Oh, where's this? Has this been sold yet? And unfortunately, whenever you talk to sales and distribution, it's not a case of, well, I hope they're not a bad one. It's usually, oh, I hope they're a good one. You know, I hope against all odds this one's a good one.
Yeah.
That's the situation. So something you mentioned there reminded me. So you've done physical release, DVD, Blu-ray. So how did you make that happen with Indie Rights?
Well, they just offer it as an additional service. You have to create the ISO yourself, which is a specific file that gives you the DVD like home screen sort of thing. And I had to speak to a designer that would do that, which was relatively easy. Sent them everything over, and they just sent back, well, this is what your home screen can look like, etc., and everything else like that. And the added advantage of Blu-ray is that we've managed to put a not a behind the scenes thing, but a DVD document not documentary, what's the word? Commentary, director's commentary.
Oh yeah.
So we filmed that, myself and Ben together. So you've got us talking about the film with the little film in the corner of the screen, and also that audio has gone onto the DVD because there's not enough space on the DVD to put that on there, but on the Blu-ray you could. So Indie Rights just gave you the option to do it. So if you could just, they're already receiving the film. If you can send them that ISO file, it just, for me, I was like, well, I need to take advantage of every single revenue stream that could possibly come in. Granted, nowadays, DVD and Blu-ray purchases are minimal, extremely minimal. And speaking to Linda at Indie Rights, like what she said years ago, even, I don't know, 10 to 15 years ago, you'd be firing it through with DVDs and Blu-rays and off the shelf. I mean, I think I can only name probably one or two supermarkets that have a very small section in the UK, whereas everything is online in the States. And there are a few stores that stock things, but they're not going to be stocking this film. They're not going to take the risk on something like this to put it out there. But it seemed like a no-brainer to me. I was like, well, it's a very small amount of money to create the file, and if I just put it with that, and if people order it and they want to go down like the old school viewing technique of putting something physical into a player and watching it, then hopefully they will. I mean, I don't know how well DVD and Blu-ray sales do, specifically numbers wise, in different territories over the pond, but we're
going to find out, aren't you?
We'll see. Yeah, we'll see. Yeah. I know a lot of the cast and crew have bought some.
There you go. Yeah.
Well,
Everyone wants a
at least.
physical copy.
Yeah.